Thank you so much. It's great to be here. It's been a while. Um, I want to dedicate our practice today actually to the Institute for Jewish Spirituality, who's given us such heart, such neshama, such strength over the course of the pandemic and way before. I think it's my 15th or 16th year in relationship with the Institute. And actually, 25 years ago, I sat with Sylvia at Spirit Rock at the inception of IJS. So big heart for the Institute, and we're all benefiting from it. I'm amazed that so many people come and sit, 198 people here for a Tuesday morning. What a machaya, what a life-giving thing that is. My plan for us this morning is I want to teach a little bit from this week's portion, this week's parasha, Rabbi. And then I'd like to sit and I'll give you some instructions and hopefully some time just to be with yourself. So before I teach, just take a moment and be. One of my favorite teachers, Yongar Mingyur Rinpoche, a Tibetan Buddhist, calls this non-meditation meditation. And non-meditation meditation simply means being aware. So for example, if you're breathing, raise your hand. Very good. That is a good sign. And also that is a moment of awareness. That's meditation. Just realizing, well, I'm a breathing human being, much better than not breathing. Okay, make sure you can feel your feet on the floor. If you're sitting, your tush on the chair, maybe the support of your back. If you're uncomfortable, I would encourage you to move to be comfortable. Meditation is not torture. And now I'd like to ask Adi to share the screen so we can look at the text for today. It's from Re'eh, it's Devarim, the book of Deuteronomy, or 11 chapters in. Moses knows he's not going to cross over to Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, the promised land. So he gives a series of swan song orations. And this is the beginning of one. And we're going to use the English just to save a little time. He says, see, this day, and notice I've bolded this day, I set before you blessing and curse. Blessing if you obey the commandments of the eternal your God that I join upon you this day, and curse if you do not obey the commandments of the eternal your God. And then I skipped down a few parshiot to one maybe we're a little more familiar with, where it says, this day I have put before you life and death, blessing and curse. Choose life if you and your offspring would live. So what I want to talk about is, what does it mean to choose blessings over curses? And what's the focus on this day about? And ultimately, what does it mean to choose life? And Adi, if you don't mind, we could stop sharing the screen. So my suggestion for today is that the key to understanding choosing life and blessings over curses is Hayom, this day. That Hayom, this day, is the only time when we can actually experience blessings. The only time we actually have is Hayom, this day, this hour, this minute, this breath. And that's the focus of a life that's a life of blessing as opposed to a life filled with curses. But how do we choose life on a daily basis? How do we choose to be present for the blessings and avoid the curses as much as we can? And obviously, I'm using these words, curses and blessings, in a metaphoric sense, not in a real sense. Well, it all has to do with up here, the mind. We are where our minds are, right? And we know that. We know that we are where our minds are. There's a great scholar of neurology and doctor, Robert Sapolsky, who wrote a book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers, which I highly recommend if you hadn't read it. And it's a there's some complexity to the book, but it's actually simple. Zebras don't get ulcers because they're only stressed out when they need to be. So for example, zebras in the field drinking from a watering hole, sees a lion, stressful. Lion attacks the zebra, very stressful. Lion eats zebra, very stressful. Or lion misses zebra, zebra is now away from the lion. As soon as the lion's gone, the zebra is no longer stressed out anymore. The zebra goes back to stasis right away. That's what zebras do. The problem with humans is that we're not like zebras. We actually create those kind of stressful situations in our minds all the time. That is, and they function physiologically the same as if we're being attacked by a lion. So we know this is true because we know that, for example, when we perseverate about the past, when we find ourselves wrestling with an event that happened in the past, could be a traumatic event, it could be in our mind what happened, it may not have actually happened, it could be a story we tell ourselves. It doesn't actually matter, but we know that we can get caught up in the past, and it's as if our heart can race. It could be as if we're fighting for our lives because we've cast ourselves back into the past, but it's actually not happening. It's only happening in our minds. The same is true for the future. We can get worried about the future, and unlike the zebra who can let the lion down unless the lion eats the zebra, assuming the zebra gets free, the zebra can say, okay, no lion right now, I'm happy eating grass, and life is good. But for us, we can worry about the future to the degree that we have ulcers or other physical or emotional challenges, problems, what we might call curses. So the key then is learning how to be present for the blessings that are arising right now. That doesn't mean we shouldn't learn from the past or we shouldn't plan for the future. It just means that the balance of our lives needs to be more focused on what's happening and unfolding before us right now. One way to understand God's unknowable name, Yud-He-Vav-He, is the unfolding of being, the ever-present present of being. I live in Santa Rosa. Santa Rosa is north of San Francisco, 50 miles. And in 2017, we had the worst fire in California history here. We've since had worse fires, but part of my town burnt down, and 32 families that live in the community that I live, that are part of the congregation I serve, lost their homes. I fled from my home. And every year since that year, we've had what's called fire season. In fact, last year, as soon as Kol Nidre ended, I fled my home, first to pick up my mother, then to meet with my daughter and my wife. And the fire came 6 blocks from my house. And this year, we're experiencing a record drought in our recorded history and fires north and west of us. So I understand in a way, maybe that others don't, what it means to choose the blessings now. Because in truth, I could be caught up in the fear of the future in a heartbeat, and also the traumatic past is equally accessible to me. And I didn't even mention COVID, which we're all reorienting around yet again. So the challenge is to try not to do that. So this is what I know. It's a beautiful day here in Santa Rosa, another sunny day. The fog just rolled out, and an oriole, a beautiful orange and black bird, which I never see, somehow landed in my backyard like 15 minutes ago. And that's like an angel for me coming down to visit. My dog's happy. My spouse is working hard but feeling well. My kids are both safe and healthy. It's actually a good day. The blessings of today are tangible to me as long as I don't cast myself into the past, where I can get pretty worked up about many things, true and maybe that didn't happen except in my mind, or if I cast myself into the future, where we all have plenty to worry about. The challenge again is to be here, because this is where the blessings flow. What we have right now, whatever we have, whatever life we're given, whatever joy we experience, whatever love we feel, happens in the present. And so it pays such dividends to try to be here. That's what I want to teach. And now I'd like to sit with a few instructions. One instruction is that you can't force yourself to be in the present. It doesn't work that way. The more you force yourself to be in the present, the more you'll struggle. What you can do is be curious and open to your experience without judgment, with a lot of compassion And if you find yourself in the past struggling with a hard experience, put your hand on your heart. Hold your tsuris, your sorrow, like a mom holds a baby. Don't try to push it away, just be with it. And then you might say, okay, let's see if I can come back to the present with my breath. Let's see if I can be present now. And maybe what being present now is just feeling the sorrow that you feel. If you find yourself in the future worrying, have compassion for the worrying mind. You might again put your hand on your heart and say, sweetheart, you're worrying. It's hard. It's painful. And then see if you can shift with compassion and curiosity back to your breath. The point is not to force anything and try to welcome whatever experiences come to you with compassion and without judgment, with love, and if you can, some equanimity. So I would suggest closing your eyes and being in as upright and open as a position as you can. I'm going to ring the bell and we'll have, it looks like, 10, 11, 12, 13 minutes to sit together. Here we go. Allow your attention to feel into your body like a leaf falling from a tree to the ground. Just notice what it's like to be in your body with compassion and love. It's doing the best it can. And if you'd like, go ahead and take a moment to locate your breath. A place where you can pay attention to breathing. It may be the rise and fall of your belly, or the feeling of air flowing over your nostrils or your lips. Just gentle breathing now. Bringing attention to the act of breathing. Using the breath as an anchor for our practice. Using the breath as an anchor for being present for what's unfolding right now. And if you get lost, you can always just come back to breathing. I'm going to be quiet now.
Right. George, thank you. We're going to now shift into an opportunity for reciting Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish, for those who are saying Kaddish. If you want to share the name of a person that you are remembering today in the chat, please feel welcome to do so. And we'll have a chance to unmute. And then after Kaddish, we will have a chance to ask questions of George and offer comments or responses.
Thank you.
Yitgadal v'yitgadash shmei Rabbi v'yama divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala
ובזמן
v'yivru.
אמן.
אמן. יש מרבה מברך ויח וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתגלה ויתברך עם כל ברכתה ושירתה ושמחתה ונחמתה ועמדם בעלמה ואמרו אמן. תודה רבה משמיים וחיים אמן כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום אמרה כל ישראל
Amen. Hey, Farmer Robert,
Amen. Amen.
Okay. Thank you. George, thank you again. We're going to conclude the set momentarily, and this concludes the practice. But if you want to stay around to share comments or reflections or offer or questions, please feel welcome to continue to join us. If you are leaving us, we want to wish you Tzeitchem L'Shalom, going in peace, and invite you to come back again tomorrow, same time and channel, 12:30 Eastern, 9:30 Pacific. Where we will have another practice. So thank you. George, thank you. I was struck in thinking about Hayom, right? And as we're about to enter into Elul on Sunday, still sign up for the Shofar Project. But how important that word is, how much of a refrain it is in Sefer Devarim, in the book of Deuteronomy, as you pointed out, and also how it becomes a real linchpin for our high holiday liturgy. Hayom Havrat Olam, today is the birthday of the world, and various things related to Hayom. And I'm just wondering, that's really by way of an observation, but how you maybe try to bring greater awareness or attunement to Hayomness being present in the day or in the moment, especially during Elul and heading into Tishrei. George, you're still muted. Just got to unmute yourself. There you go.
Of course. I get very practical. It's a great question. I have a timer on my phone that goes off every hour, 6 of the waking hours of the day. And my practice is when the bell rings, I take an in breath and I say, I feel myself breathing in, I feel my body, I feel myself breathing out. So that's one way that in general, I try to remember that the blessings flow now, Hayom, and to find myself in the present more than in the past or in the future. And then, as we enter Elul, and certainly once we're in the holy days, I think what Moshe is saying in Torah is there's urgency here. Hayom, Hayom, Hayom. And that's also what the liturgy says, that there's no better time than the present to do tshuva. There's no better time than the present to reach out to a friend who you haven't spoken to, or to reach out to a family member you've lost touch with. So I think the way I work with Hayom as we approach the Yamim Norim, these days of awe, is just to be more present of the need to do it now. The saying, if you say you'll study Torah when you have time, you'll never study Torah. The same is true. You'll never do tshuva if you're waiting to have time for it. So I think that's the way I would answer your question. I allow the urgency to enter into my being more, and I intensify my practice to try to wake up to it.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also so helpful just right now, as you alluded to, that everything we thought we knew about COVID, and now it's changing again with the Delta variant, and it's so hard to make plans. As my mother would say, it's so hard to make plans. And that really, I mean, you're a shul rabbi, like, how do you make plans for high holidays, whatever it is? And we're once again, I think, being just rediscovering how important it is just to be able to be present in the present.
Right. Impermanence is not something that we talk a lot about in the Jewish world, although it's there for us. I mean, I think Yom Kippur is about impermanence. It's precisely about, it's a day where we remember how precious life is by rehearsing our death. So what COVID has taught us in very unpleasant ways that are persistent and maddening if you're trying to plan holy day services or plan anything, is that we don't have much we can count on except what's right in front of us. Yeah. Judaism is wise in that way, in that death is a foil for life. So as we lose so much around COVID, it hopefully can also make what we have so much more precious. I mean, I think on my better days, that's the way it works for me.
Yeah. I want to invite, if you have questions or reflections of your own that you want to share in the chat, to please feel welcome to do so. I was also struck, George, you talked very movingly about your own situation, having to flee your home and members of your community. And I wonder if you want, I mean, if it's not, painful, to share a little bit more about how has that experience in the last several years sort of affected you now, shaped you, because that's not something that all of us, thankfully, all of us share. And I wonder if you want to just share anything more about that.
Sure. I think, well, one, it was traumatizing, and I was pretty profoundly depressed for a while. And I actually entered the IJS teacher training program just because I knew it would be a healing place to heal, and it worked. So thank you, IJS, for that. The other thing I would say is it's helped me realize that the material things that we orient towards, like a home that I almost own, a retirement account that's looking pretty good, I'm 58, those things, they're really not the center of happiness. And also they seem permanent, or they seem like we have it coming to us, or we've earned it, but they can vanish in a moment's notice. And so I've had to reorient it over and over again to remember, what's truly important. And it's going to sound cliche, but it's not. My family, my community, my spouse, my kids. So that happens regularly for me as I forget and then remember again what's really important. It's interesting because it's sometimes hard to understand the Israelites. They seem so stiff-necked and so easy to forget. But as I go through this process around fires, and also living with climate change as a reality, I understand really part of what it means to be human is to often be asleep to the blessings all around us. We have to be reminded over and over again, me included. So that's part of what's happened, is that I can get down and upset and worried, and then I can reorient and remember, but I still have my health. I still love this community. It's still a beautiful day. And these things that I thought were so important, they're not unimportant, but there's no guarantees around them, and they're not actually essential to my well-being.
I wonder if you want to say also a little bit. Anna just offered a reflection here. Thank you for inspiring my sit with in breath Yud Hey, on the breath, and the out breath Vav Hey. And I wonder, it's one thing to be present with ourselves. It's also then, where is the divine, right? How do we sense that? And I wonder if you can speak sort of personally for you. How is your practice part of your relationship with the divine, with the Creator?
I love your questions, Josh. They're inspiring me. So another thing that happened for me during the Tubbs fire, the aftermath, I really lost my connection with God for a while. I really felt bereft and at sea. But what emerged from that is letting finally go, for the most part, of a personal God and moving to an understanding of God that's more like what awareness is, more like the unfolding of being or the ground of all being. Looks a little bit like the big sky meditation, when basically when I can sit in that big blue wide open space and feel the sentient loving nature of it, I feel the divine presence. So when I'm sitting, often I'm just struggling to arrive, just to be present. And there are moments when that struggle gives way to a beautiful sense of the loving, sentient nature of being. And to me, that's the God space of my meditation practice. I do patently Jewish meditations, like meditating with Yud-Heh Vav-Heh, but not as often. And there, I approach those more cautiously and usually under more, with more time and care around them. But my normal practice is about being awake and aware to the moment that's before me. And that's often a godly moment if I can gently and patiently and lovingly arrive there. So I'm just trying to think what else. I guess the other thing, I think that's what I would say about meditation and God, that God unfolds in the moment, in the present. You know, that's where I experience God, and when I can be there, God is there. My simple understanding is God's always there waiting. It's like when you show up, nice to see you, George. I'm so glad you arrived today. Welcome.
There's a heavy question here that came in from Lori about that last week. A dear friend who she owed a call back on the phone call passed away, and she says that my sadness is deepened by my beating myself up for neglecting, delaying calling her back, though I believe she forgives me. My question is, how do we balance the urgency and anxiety of do it now with the need to pace, relax our energy in our interactions with ourselves and others? I wonder how you count that.
Yeah, that's a beautiful one. I mean, this is what I would do first. I just put my hand on your heart and acknowledge that you're suffering, and also you use that acknowledgement to have compassion for yourself, for your friend, and for everyone else that's also suffering in similar circumstances everywhere. You know, millions of people. And then I would say that actually, I think that's the whole practice. That's it. Just do this and sit with it as much as you can with compassion and love. You could add a prayer for your friend, for yourself. And I think that's the state of the world we live in, and certainly what rabbis live with all the time. We're human. As Jonathan Slater, my good friend, and very important part of IJS, said to me many, many years ago, George, the need is infinite, but we are not. So there's just some recognition that goes with this, that I'm just George, and I'm doing the best I can, and I fall down sometimes. And being, I don't know if okay is the word with it, but just being able to be with that. Because you can't, if you push it away, it doesn't work. So if I've learned anything, I've learned that you have to embrace it all and build some resilience around that. Maybe that's another way to describe the practice. Embrace it all and build some resilience around it.
It's also really striking, again, just with the Elul theme of like the image of an open hand on the heart rather than a closed fist beating it, right? Which we also reinterpret as like, you're knocking up, gently, but that's not how most of us do it. And the image of an open hand on the heart, is a beautiful one. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Wonderful. Well, George, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope we'll have you back soon. And thanks everyone for joining us today. It's so good to be with you again and being here, and encourage you to come back and join us again tomorrow if you can, or whenever you can, and wish you shalom.
Yes, great to be with you. Thanks so much. Take care.